all set? Excellent. Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here this morning. I think it's an important milestone that we've reached today, and I will coin it in this way. It's a bittersweet milestone, but we'll get to that in a minute. Thank you to the employers that are here that have brought us to this wonderful success that Newfoundland and Labrador enjoys today. And thank you to my colleagues, especially to Minister Bernie Davis, former Minister of Immigration, who has laid much of the foundation to what we are about to reflect on and announce today. It goes without saying that Newfoundland and Labrador has been living under a difficult journey for some 50 years in many respects. For 50 years, our population has been declining. For 50 years, enrollment of our children in our schools has been declining. And for 50 years, our people have been moving away. For 50 years, the number of family members who have passed away have been greater than the number of children being born into our families. This has created an economic, social, and financial cliff, which we now find ourselves delicately poised against. It has caused us to leave, it's caused us to kind of reflect on a failure of confidence in some respects in our province's future. When you have population declining, it's one of the core fundamental aspects of how you view the future of your province. This year has offered a different sunrise to our future, however. This year is when it comes to many people who are now calling Newfoundland and Labrador home, who are not moving away. We have a year of firsts that we have established. For the first time in 50 years, more children are entering our schools than the year before. And in the largest ever increase since 1971, our population is growing, and it's at its highest rate. In the last 18 months, our population grew by 6,200 people. This is remarkable in many respects because the fundamental reality that for every baby being born in Newfoundland and Labrador, 2 of our family members are passing away is still true. So how is it that this growth can be achieved, growing our population in 18 months by 6,200 people? How can that be achieved under such circumstances? Well, in the last 18 months, 5,600 newcomers have chosen to make Newfoundland and Labrador their home from other countries. And 3,700 people have chosen to come here, to live here from other Canadian provinces. Some expat Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, some from other provinces. This, the net impact of the inflows and the outflows, we still grew by 6,200 people. So the question is, who made this happen? The simple answer is, we did. Our provincial government has not has not really treated immigration with anything much more than lip service, I would argue, in years past. But with deliberate, focused resource policy actions, we are acting on the needs of immigration. And that is, I would argue, new. Our employers have stepped up as our partners, and they are also the true drivers of our success. Attracting skilled talent to choose our province, to come here, to live here, is the true game changer. Immigration is the game changer. And which brings us to another first, which is somewhat of a bittersweet first. For the very first time ever, Newfoundland and Labrador has completely filled all of its provincial immigration allocation pathways that have been granted it, delegated to it by Ottawa. There is no room left this year, none. These are Ottawa's conditions and rules. This is the rules that Ottawa imposes, and this is the allocation that they give us that we must live by. And under these federal rules, we are not allowed at this point in time to submit any further nominations for the rest of the calendar year. As many of you are very much aware, Ottawa delegates to all provinces and territories a certain amount of immigration room. And within that room, the ability to nominate certain newcomers for permanent residency. Our allocation in Newfoundland and Labrador is currently 1,140 spots under the provincial nomination program and 453 spots under the Atlantic Immigration Program. In previous years, we were lucky if we could fill a third of those spots. In this last year, we saw a 50% growth in our ability to fill those spots. This year, we have not only filled all roughly 1,600 spots, we ran out of room from our federal allocation as of October 7th of this year, 3 months before the calendar year end and 3 months before our immigration year end. This is why this first is bittersweet. For 3 months, we have been barred effectively by Ottawa from submitting any additional nominations to make our population grow even higher. But indeed, on all of this, we have not stopped work on immigration. We recognize that there's a big job to do, and we could simply take the position that we'll stop immigration for the next 3 months or from that period forward and wait until our new allocation comes as of January 1st. That is not a desirable approach and one I will not take. So what we have done for the moment, while we await the new annual federal allocation, which will open up again on January 1st, we are continuing to take in nomination applications. And those nominations will be forwarded immediately on January 1st when we get our new allocation. You will be first in line. Please remember, while we have filled all of our applications, all of our nominations positions now, don't take despair. Continue to submit them to us and work with us. We will submit them immediately upon January 1st, and you will be the first in line. It creates an incentive to want to get in there and get in there early. But that's not the answer. That's only a short-term solution. The full answer is this. Ottawa must give us what we have already asked for, which is more room, more allocations, the capacity to nominate more people. We should never be in a situation where we run out of room. In a province which is, according to Statistics Canada, still forecasted to lose population over the next several years and decades, a forecast which we are basically defeating. But if for that reason, Ottawa, and for the strength of the Federation, Ottawa should grant us a doubling of our nomination capacity. That is what I'm asking for 2023. We cannot have employers left behind, and we cannot have newcomers who want to live in our province, who are choosing to live in our province, to have them left behind. It is not acceptable. This can be done by Ottawa, and it can be done quickly. Ottawa did not act on my previous request. When I approached the federal minister, I asked for an increase, a substantial increase in 2022. They did not act on that. Now we are seeing the results of this. So I'm asking now for an increase for the remainder of the year. And secondly, I'm asking for a doubling of our allocation for 2023. This is one of many issues that we are dealing with the federal government to try to make sure that we have the resources in place to stem, to stymie, to stop population decline and to encourage growth, economic, social, financial, and population growth. There are many issues that need to be resolved with Ottawa, many, and I'll elaborate on those if there's an interest. But right now, the central issue is we need more room to grow, and it's Ottawa that's in charge of that room. We're asking for it. We expect it. Thank you all very much.
You mentioned that the people who've applied already moved to January 1st. But what do you think might happen if Ottawa doesn't give us the allocation for this calendar year to those people?
Well, they will move forward for January 1st. We're communicating with them what the circumstances are. You know, just solely from an administrative point of view, we take a certain pride within the Provincial Department of Immigration, the Office of Immigration and Multiculturalism, that we have a 30-day service delivery standard. So you'll have an application that was actually received on October 7th, which we can't even nominate until January 1st. Strictly from a service delivery standard, which we take a certain pride in, this is very upsetting to us. But what's more upsetting is that the newcomer has to wait in a time of uncertainty as to whether or not Ottawa will accept their nomination. That's all we can do.
Is there a risk that those people might go to other provinces, still have some allocation available?
There's always that potential, but they chose Newfoundland and Labrador. We're communicating with them that we will not abandon them. This province will not abandon them. They will be first in line come January 1st. And while we will respect their choices, we encourage them to be patient while we approach the federal government for a better solution for the future.
When does Ottawa typically make a decision on the allocation for the new year?
It can be quite late. That's a very good question. Sometimes it's the spring. This past year, we saw the levels plan not released until quite late in the year. So what we would like to have, and like to have early, is information that deals with this problem. We have the solution to our own problems. Ottawa needs to be part of our solution.
What is the reason that it's so low that we filled it up so quickly? Why didn't Ottawa give us more?
Well, I can only speculate. I think previous governments have asked for additional allocations in the past, but I will speculate that because the allocations had not been fulfilled, not been filled in the past, the response and the reply from Ottawa has been, use what you got first and then come talk to us later. That's for them to answer. I can tell you that what we have been doing is forecasting to Ottawa that we will exceed our allocation capacity within the calendar year. We in Newfoundland and Labrador, by way of example, have been punching above our weight. You may not be aware of this, but we receive more federally sponsored refugees per capita than anywhere else in Atlantic Canada. We recognize newcomers from all places and all kinds. Newfoundland and Labrador has opened up a special Ukrainian support desk to create relationships, to usher Ukrainians to a new life in our province. We have openly welcomed more refugees on a per capita basis than most all other provinces in all of Canada. By way of example, we supported, in partnership with the federal government, just over 560 refugees in 2021. That's more refugees, federally assisted refugees, than the province of New Brunswick and PEI combined. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because it assists us in our diversity efforts, and it also assists us in our population. We do it as a duty of citizenship and as a response to our own needs. We're asking Ottawa, recognize us as a full partner in this process and recognize that we are acting in concert with their priorities. Give us the resources to be able to get the job done. And I'll say this to you, just by way of example. When it comes to refugee resettlement and refugee resettlement agencies, we have, I would argue, the best resettlement agency in the country, called the Association for New Canadians. There are 50 resettlement agencies across the entire country contracted by the federal government. The Association for New Canadians receives $10,000 per refugee that they support. The Resettlement Agency of Prince Edward Island receives $70,000 per refugee. In Nova Scotia, $45,000. This is the trend across the entire country. When you look at the support that Ottawa gives Newfoundland and Labrador for our resettlement efforts, which support retention, the ANC is the lowest funded support organization in the country. That has to change. IRCC has no presence in our province. They have 10,000 square feet of office space sitting down in downtown St. John's with 2 people employed there. Those 2 people do processing for applications for other provinces. That's unacceptable. We have serious issues about the issuing of work permits so that we can get our people employed, our newcomers employed on a timely basis. Central issue for our employers, getting work permits in place. So when we look at this, I say to you very confidently and clear-minded, we have done this through our own efforts. We have succeeded by Newfoundlanders and Labradorians working in common cause with each other to get the job done. We're asking Ottawa to be a full partner with us in the future to give us what we need to continue this progress.
So if the federal government doesn't kind of up this capacity for this year, in the next couple of months, do you know how many people are kind of waiting to come to this province right now?
We already have approximately 190 already at this point in time on late November that we cannot forward at this point in time. That number will grow. And bear in mind, so I'm not planning on Ottawa's failure, I'm planning on their success. I'm planning on them to come with us, to recognize, to hear what I'm saying, and to realize that the health of the Federation of Canada is not treated well and supported if the only province in the entire country which has a forecasted population decline. No other province in Canada has a forecasted population decline other than Newfoundland and Labrador. Again, we are defeating that forecast. But to make sure that forecast is defeated into the future, we need that immigration room. So when we forward these applications on January 1st, there is a possibility, a likelihood, that our allotment, our nominations, our room will not be completed and fulfilled by October 7th of next year. It could be as early as July or August. That's unacceptable. We can do this. We need that room.
There have been conversations before about, the housing crunch and issues with getting newcomers settled away with housing and that sort of stuff. If we double our capacity, is that sustainable from that point of view?
It sure is. Listen, that's why it's so important the Association for New Canadians get the resources it needs. Is it acceptable that when you do the measurement, when you do the analysis, that the Resettlement Agency of PEI gets the equivalent of $70,000 from the federal government for each refugee that it supports, whereas the Association for New Canadians gets the equivalent of $10,000 per newcomer? By getting these resources, this support in place, we can respond more effectively to many of these questions. That's first and foremost. The second issue, this is, and I want to be clear that we are attractive as a province because our housing issues, which are there, nobody's denying that, they are far less intensive and significant as they are in other parts of the country. This is an attractive place to live. While we do have housing issues and we can respond to our housing issues, We can build more housing stock. We can make housing more available. More housing is coming in place. That's not a bad problem to have because it means our population continues to grow. We shall deal with that as we are already, but we need the support of our national government to be able to assist in that process. We will tackle that problem. It's a great problem to have, but it is a problem, and we will tackle it.
Was there going to be another chartered flight by the province of Ukrainian refugees coming to this province? Is that something that kind of hangs in the balance as well?
No, not at all. We are dedicated to continue on Ukrainian airlift and Ukrainian humanitarian relief that supports our provinces, supports Ukraine, and supports Ukrainians. There will be another charter arriving on December 6th. The Ukrainian effort, Ukrainians are settling into our province incredibly well. We have brought in thus far 560 Ukrainians, 520 Ukrainians via our airlifts, in 3 airlifts to date. But we have 1,200 Ukrainians living in our province. Where did the other 600 plus come from? They came directly from Ukraine, from Poland, and from other countries overseas to our province, deliberately to our province on their own means. But they also came from other provinces where they had attempted resettlement but are choosing Newfoundland and Labrador in a secondary migration. We are committed to Ukraine. We're going to keep that initiative going. I'll say this, the numbers of Ukrainians that are in our province are not reflective of the population growth numbers that I just recited. These numbers actually come from a period slightly before that data period. So our population has actually grown by, in the last 18 months, even more than the 6,200 number that I recited.
So are the Ukrainians part of the allocation, or is that, are they simply?
No, they will be part of the allocation. Right now, the federal government has no permanent residency pathway for Ukrainians. They're offered a 3-year open visitors permit and a 3-year open work permit. But at this point in time, that is all they have. We are asking the federal government for a dedicated pathway for Ukrainians so that they can obtain permanent residency, or at the very least, additional spaces within our existing pathways, such as our provincial nomination program, our PNP, so that we can bring in those Ukrainians who want to stay here to permanent residency. So yes, one of the reasons why we've had many, many Ukrainians who have been part of the application process, the nomination process, that have brought us to the point where we ran out of room on October 7th.
So those Ukrainians who arrive in December, they'll have to wait till January 1st?
Well, they have to get a job. Obviously, they have to secure employment first. Under federal rules for permanent residency, under the immigration pathways, you have to secure employment first, and then you're depending on the pathway, either you or your employer can then nominate you. That's a very streamlined process. So it would not be anticipated that the December 6th arrival would be affected negatively by this decision. Or by this reality of a lack of room. They would be part of, I think normally they would be part of the future calendar year's allocation regardless, or anyway.
Does that allocation that we've reached the limit of, does that include refugees?
No, it doesn't. Refugees automatically come with permanent residency, which is excellent. I differentiate sometimes. Some people question what's the difference between federally government-assisted refugees and the Ukrainian situation. With the federal government-assisted refugees, they come immediately. They're assisted in coming to Canada by the federal government. Immediately upon arrival in Canada, they're given permanent residency. Immediately upon coming to Canada, they're given federal assistance for up to a year for basic living, costs of living, and other requirements. Including housing and other things, whereas with the Ukrainian initiative, the province of Newfoundland and Labrador is really left to do all that support for the Ukrainians, and we do so quite willingly and quite lovingly. It is so important to support all refugees with the requirements that they need. You know, it's really interesting. I'm asking the federal government for greater cooperation when it comes to supporting the Ukrainian refugees. You may not be aware of this, but some time ago, the federal government offered 25 hotel spaces for Ukrainian citizens coming to Canada, coming to St. John's on the QIT, on the Canada Ukrainian arrival visa. Since October 11, 25 rooms have been available to Ukrainians at a hotel downtown. Not one of those hotels' rooms has been occupied since October 11th. Not one. The federal government is paying for those rooms each and every night, but because of the rules or the requirements or the sign up, the way that those Ukrainians would gain access to those hotel, that temporary accommodation, to the best of our knowledge, not one of those rooms that have been paid for since October 11th have ever been occupied by a Ukrainian refugee. We would like to work at better harmony and partnership with the federal government to make sure that those resources are not unnecessarily wasted. We are putting up Ukrainians in temporary accommodation. The average stay of a Ukrainian in temporary accommodation is less than 40 days. So they're moving very quickly from temporary accommodation into market housing, regular apartments and houses and other things. They're making that transition very, very well. But it is an ongoing conversation with Ottawa as to why exactly they're offering hotel accommodation, which is not being used. They're paying for it. There's not one Ukrainian that, to the best of our knowledge, that's ever stayed at one of those hotel rooms since October 7th. Can we work in collaboration and cooperation to better utilize those resources? This is to bring immigration to the next level in our province. We have brought it to this level. We, the provincial government, the people of our province, the employers of our province, to bring it to the next level, we really need a stronger cooperative relationship with our federal partners to bring it to the next level. We need more allocation. We need IRCC, Immigration and Refugee Citizenship Canada, presence in our province. Right now, up to 45% of the time of my staff are dealing with federal immigration issues because there's nobody to pick up the phone other than us. That got to change. We need a federal immigration presence in our province to be able to respond to immigration questions from of the federal pathways. We need somebody to pick up the phone.
I'm not sure I understand this. So the rooms that are being paid for by Ottawa, do you understand why they're not being used?
We don't have a full, there are some issues that in order to gain access to the rooms, apparently there's an app. The app is only open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's a federal app, electronic app, that's only open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to the best of my knowledge. A lot of the arrivals, you have to check in at that point in time. Upon arrival, a lot of the arrivals that occur in St. John's are in the wee hours of the night because that's when the flights get in. And so there's nobody there to greet them. There's nobody there to make them aware of this. They're coming to us looking for temporary accommodation, and we will never abandon them. So we help them.
But you can't coordinate with the federal government to get...
We want to.
Okay.
We want to. We're saying, listen, give us authority over those rooms. We'll take care of that. We'll do what's best for the Ukrainians. We won't leave empty hotel rooms.